Show.
All right. Hello. Welcome, Lee. My buddy Lee Fraser from Cape Breton. He owns a eco resort out just off the Cabot Trail called Live Life in Tents. Current business owner there. He's not your standard Airbnb host. He offers a range of different products, services, tours, experiences, you name it. I'm sure there's a lot that I don't even know about because Lee's such a busybody. He's always up to different things. He comes from a background of events, working away, and much more. So welcome to the new podcast, the new Sawyer Hannay Show. Welcome, buddy.
Yeah, man. Cheers. Awesome. Yeah. It's been a while, man. It took you long enough.
I know, right? It's funny. I remember a few years ago, we recorded a podcast episode in your home studio.
Yeah.
Did you ever do anything with that?
What, the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We're in the fifth season going into this, maybe sixth. I can't remember. Fifth or sixth season. So basically it fires up in the wintertime when I have more time. So we tried to keep it going in the summer, but a friend of mine that I brought on 2 years ago, I think now 2 years ago. Yeah, anyways, he jumped on board as a co-host, and then we're both so busy in the summer. He does production and sound and video and all kinds of stuff. Works for a local video production company as well. So his summers are crazy and my summers are crazy. So we've managed to do a couple, but there's no possibility of getting it done in the summer. But anyways, we have. Yeah, we're into 60 episodes, maybe 50, okay. 60.
So I should have added that to your intro. I know that I've seen your posts with the pod in general. I wasn't sure if our actual episode ever seen the light of day. That was aired. That'd be interesting to see because that was how long ago? Like how long's it been? Man, time flies. It's been a few years.
2018, I think.
2018. Wow.
Yeah, that was then. I'm trying to load it up because I think, I might. I'm getting into starting to ramp up stuff for this. I guess what we call it a season. It's just basically the winter months, right? So we usually kick it up at the end of the year, and then I keep it going until the spring and do 10 to 15 episodes.
Okay.
But yeah, that one was I think one of the first ones. That was like going into the summer. That was 2018 or 19. And I was trying to, we're just still trying to figure out what the hell we were doing at that point.
I remember, man, one of my impressions of you way back then was like, you're ahead of your time. I remember you wearing this vintage, you probably still have it, for sure you do. This vintage, I don't know if it was a long sleeve or a t-shirt, but it said like Cape Breton not just across the chest, like it went down on the sleeves, right across, you know the shirt I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you were wearing that then, and now this whole, like in my world, the apparel world, this whole vintage trend is here. And even the drop shoulder with the long letters, like I have a Zach Bryan t-shirt that is basically exactly like your Cape Breton t-shirt, which was like an original vintage t-shirt. And that was back, like you said, 2018. So I don't know where the hell, you found that. And then just even starting a podcast way back then, like kind of before podcasting really fully took off. You've definitely been innovative in those ways. And like, I think it was your resort that originally kind of drew us together. Talk to me a little bit about that, like when that got started. I remember obviously being there. A lot of people listening might not, have seen it, but talk to me a little bit about how that got started and what that looks like now.
So it was just by fluke, honestly. There's no point. Well, there's no real plan on ever starting. So we basically were kind of like a campground sort of deal, and we have a rental next door. We're getting into a couple other things now. Kind of just we're riding this wave. So it, I think it was in whatever year Trump was getting elected the first time. It was like 2016, I think, and it was like. The reason I say that is because it was like, if you go to big tourism conferences for years, they would talk about this like Trump bump. So there was like a satirical website that year that was made, and it was called Cape Breton If Trump Wins. So it was kind of done by a radio host from Sydney, and it was like making fun, like, if Trump gets elected, you can move to Cape Breton. And it was like this whole satirical website done up. And so that actually generated like millions upon millions of hits and traffic to the Cape Breton tourism website and Tours of Nova Scotia's website. So when you're in tourism conferences and stuff, and they're looking at statistics, it's like an upward graph, and then there's a big spike, and they say, well, we can't, that's the Trump bump year. So it was there's a lot of stuff happening, and then I'd taken a year off work, and I was just like kind of kicking around, and I always like hosted people, always gave, like, we had a ton of camping gear, so I always like recommended hikes and planned itineraries for friends of mine or whatever. And then that's basically what happened. It was like May, and I did a trip for a friend of mine, gave him all the gear, him and his girlfriend, and he texted me. He's like, oh, you should do this as a business. And I had nothing going on that summer. So I just said, whatever, let's do it. And then it started more as like a travel agent for adventure tourism. So we bought like $5,000 worth of camping gear and then just threw it up. I was still working offshore full. Pretty much that was my main gig. I stopped that 2 years ago, roughly. So that was kind of offshore most of that summer. And we only launched until like in August or something. And then the next year, just by fluke, started doing a campground. And then I ended up in Nicaragua, hanging out at a hostel my friend owned. And I wanted to start a hostel. And the building that I was renovating, that would have been the winter or spring before you landed. That was going to cost a lot more, and it was a lot more work than we initially thought. It was an old place, really old place. Yep. And so, I just basically temporarily set stuff up on the property that I bought, that I lived in. And it's been here ever since. And we ended up buying the property next door. And that's kind of how the campground kind of started. Just trying to look at something that was a little bit different than what's being offered. And we are a little bit stripped back as far as what we offer. Just basically, the closest to like authentic camping, I guess, that you can get. And, that's the kind of vibe that I wanted to put out there. But, since then things are definitely changed. And so we've slowly started working towards expanding into like a various level of, you can come and just pitch a tent into unserviced, and then we'll have wilderness cabins and backcountry walk-in sites, I guess, is what similar to what Keji has, Keji Maguji. So just kind of riding a wave, man. We do it that and that's the campground. So, but we obviously do a lot of other stuff.
It was like when you said hostel, I mean, of course that was your inspiration. I only went to my first hostel this year when I went to Costa Rica. So I had actually gone to your place before that, and I definitely I've never seen accommodations like yours before, that type of style. Plus that type of like, there's a lot of motivation to kind of gather with the other travelers, where I find usually Airbnbs, hotels, things like that, you're usually just kind of to yourself, where you really facilitated like networking and hanging out and things. And then after I went to Costa Rica this year for my first hostel experience, it makes sense. I mean, you really have a hostel in Atlantic Canada, which is very uncommon, right? Is there anybody else that kind of has that business model with their rentals?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, I hate the, you'll hate it, love it. The when people coin it like, oh, you have an Airbnb, kind of hate it, because Airbnb is like a lead anchor for my business, right? So it's like a marketing agent, like one of my marketing channels, because I try to do everything internally through our own website. And, but as far as like hostel wise, there's like Bryson in Cape North. So I'm talking about Cape Breton. I don't know much about anywhere else in the mainland or in East Coast, but like,
you're in your bubble out there.
As far as like the Cabot Trail and Cape Breton are concerned, like the up north from us is Bryson from BC. Bryson Patricia bought a church and turned it into a hostel, and they have like,
oh, that'd be cool.
That is like it would be more along the lines of what you probably would have stayed at in Costa Rica as far as a hostel. Like, we're more camping, but try to kind of influence people to network and hang out, either whether it be over coffee or whatever. His is it's a church with bunks, dorm rooms, staff housing, all kinds of stuff, and they live it up on the weekends. But it's a little bit different of a vibe, more of a, I wouldn't say they'll turn it up. I guess is what I'm saying. Bryson will turn it up and stay up all night with you if you want, and if not, then you can go to bed. So they have a pretty. If I go up north, like if I'm going around the Cabot Trail, that's the spot that I stay, because it's amazing there. Yeah.
Well, man, you say that they'll turn it up. Maybe things have changed, but a few years ago when we were there, like you said, in 2018, I remember I remember bouncing off floorboards at a rec center or where were we? Some kind of hall. We went to a dance. You remember that? You brought all of us. So we had, for context, anybody listening, we had, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We had, a creators meetup, right? It was a bunch of creative people from around Atlantic. You hosted, you had a bunch of sponsors, you fed us and you took care of us, and we had some networking kind of prompts. You had a few like excursions planned. I remember having like a choice which excursion we wanted to do. So you hosted all of us as creators, and I hope to talk more into that. But relevant to this, one of the nights we went to a hall. It was like a local party.
Yep.
And remember, we were dancing all on the floor, and the floor was bouncing. Like, I think we might have compromised some floor joists there. I don't even know.
No, not that time. It did happen in the fall, though. The floor broke in the fall on that one. But
Yeah,
that's the Set West Hall. So that's like one of there's like, I believe it's 5 or 6 main square dances in the western side of Cape Breton Island. And Marguerite's got 2. So there's the Barn, which is a Normally Inn cottages upriver, and then southwest where we were at, Southwest Marguerite Parish Hall, and then you've got Mabu and Judic, and where's the other one? I'm trying to remember where the other one's at. Port Hood maybe, or Glencoe. But yeah, so there's some main square dances that happen every year, and that would have been the Southwest one. So started in June. Yeah, I forgot that's why you were down. Yeah, Creatives Weekend. I think that was one of the first ones, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
might have been the first one.
I think it was, yeah. And I remember being invited, and of course life just gets busy, but I remember you reaching out after that. Have you hosted a few of those?
Yeah, we did. I think we did 6 or 7 of those events over the years. And then I had an idea. See, originally it was going to be, there was always an idea of taking it and kind of like cookie cuttering it and doing it, going around and working with different DMOs, like tourism outfits. And we were on the way of we're going to do one at PEI. And then we were literally the morning, I was online waiting for Newfoundland Labrador Tourism to jump on. And they were like 10 minutes late to the meeting. And then I got an email saying it's been canceled because there was a thing called COVID that they had to do. Yeah. That was 2020. And I think we might have done another one, but the idea was to create like eventually create like a conference. So it was more of it's like a social meetup, creative meetup, but also kind of mixed in with hiking and sponsorships and all that sort of stuff, and try to work with tourism operators and tourism marketing, like DMO, destination marketing people, and bring it to different places. But yeah, that was kind of the end. After once COVID hit, then kind of fizzled out for a little bit. And I think we may have done one winter one, but that was after that I was on to something else. So I was kept moving.
Yeah.
But
so
they were fun.
What did they were awesome. And they connected people, and like I feel like once people get within their careers and stuff, we need a reason to meet up. Everybody always says, "Oh yeah, I'll catch you soon" or whatever, and it's very hard to make plans. But for that, it was nice because we had dates in stone. We knew who was going. We had our plans set in advance, so it was really cool. And it also like forced people to get out of their comfort zone too, right? To just like, meet new people and shoot with new people and learn from new people, because everyone was so damn creative, in that group, and a lot of people doing that, full time for their living. It was pretty cool.
We had some late nights. I think there was one year right before that one. I think it was a couple weeks before the COVID broke out. We hosted a winter one here in Marguerite, and it was more or less around the lines of where we were trying to take it as far as like kind of like a meetup conference. So we had different brands and companies come in and talk about stuff that they're looking to hire people. So this is what they're looking for. This is their brand. This is the stuff they want to do, and then we're trying to pair up the creative aspect, the creators, and then also different companies that might be looking for a product, photography, videography, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we had like a dealership that sponsored it out of Sydney that gave us like five vehicles. That was right when the Jeep trucks just came out. So I had like their like jacked up high end Jeep truck, and buddy, when I picked it up, he was just like, he's like, "Yeah, we want some video stuff. You can do anything but flip it. Just don't roll this." And I was like, "All right, okay, fair play." So we shot, we have like a video, like an ad that never saw the light of day that we shot.
The outtakes.
Oh man, doing like donuts, ripping up and down dirt roads, like through snowbanks. My brother had just gotten back from working with the military, doing some training, like in Toronto and stuff, with a outfit he was trying to get a contract with. And so yeah, he was just fresh back off doing all the evasive tactics stuff, and he was just like ripping with this thing. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So
Yeah.
did you have to bring it back, like you personally?
Yeah. I brought it back. It was fine, other
Yeah.
than the fact that I backed into because it was so high, right? I backed into a friend of mine's car the
shit.
day I was driving it back. So I kind of like it's just a plastic covering for those bumpers, so they just
Yep.
had to replace that. But yeah, other than that, no, we delivered quite a bit of stuff, but they never used any of it. So whatever.
Man, that's that reminds me, for the Mem Cup in St. John, like the Memorial Cup, Kia was hosting. So they asked me to come with my hockey background as like a influencer, I guess. I use that term loosely, but as an influencer, I guess, to go down there and shoot with their vehicle. And it's funny, when I pulled up, I was late, of course. I had like a couple coffees into me, so I was a little jittery, and I was rushing, and I'm driving my truck in the city, which I don't normally drive in the cities. I try to like avoid it basically at all costs. But I was like, okay, driving, and I just got the truck, so it had a little lift kit and bigger tires, whatever, than I was used to. And I was parking it in the garage. The Kia representative is like watching out the window because I'm late. So I'm like, oh, just 1 second. I'm just going to park. So I go to pull into the garage, but of course my truck doesn't fit in the garage. So I jam on the brakes, and I didn't know, but this like little car, this little car snuck in behind me. I didn't see him. So I put it in reverse. Then I back into this other car right in front of the Kia guy who's about to give me the keys to his like brand new Kia to go like take pictures of and trust me for the day. I was like, man, I'm typically a good driver. You just fucking caught me on a bad day. Anyway, I backed right into the other guy. I was like, man, I feel so stupid. The guy watched the whole thing happen.
Oh yeah, shit happens. Oh well.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
No, exactly. So when COVID did strike, like what'd you do? Like, how'd you adapt to that? How'd you adapt your business model? Did you just close the doors for a while? Cause I know you're not open 12 months a year. Like, what'd you do?
No, we, see, there was a lot of, everybody had no clue what was going on. So I was, calling into all the people I knew in tourism and anybody and everybody I knew that might know, what might be going on, because at that point, I can't remember really how it worked, but I know they were releasing some information about maybe regulations or whatever for certain businesses. And I know that tourism, and especially the smaller operators, were definitely not on their radar. And I think it might have been the year that I decided to, I think it was either that year or maybe the next year. I can't remember, but it might have been the year that I was at the time probably deciding to do it full time. And not work offshore anymore.
Yeah.
And then we get into the spring. Yeah, that's what it was. And then this stuff. But yeah, so nothing came out. So we just basically, at one point, I just said, I'm opening. I really don't give a shit. You can find me if you want. I'm opening. Here's all of our cleaning regs. Here's what we're doing. And this was like May, I think. And I just said, I'm opening June 1st. Campground's open, all the tours, everything's open. We'll abide by whatever was out at that time. And then here's all of our cleaning procedures. Here's all this other stuff. So in the end, like by the end of June, regulations came out for like tourism and like accommodations and campground sector. And they were basically pretty much exactly what we were doing. But we just sat down. I just said, yeah, I really don't give a shit. People, like, there was a lot of businesses here that just opened regardless. They didn't really, they were just like, I'm not opening. So
Right.
It was a very hard thing, because it's like, what do you do? But in the end, it's like, I'm just not going to sit on my hands and not do anything. So I'm opening if people want to come. If you feel comfortable, great. If not, whatever. And then I just said that in all of our literature. I just said, listen, man, this is where we're at. We're going to try to abide by and make everybody comfortable, but you are in an outdoor environment. You're at a campground. This is shared bathrooms. We're going to do our best to make sure that everything's cleaned and all that sort of stuff. But this is just the way she goes. So, and then basically right after we decided to do all that stuff, only like a week or two after, and then everything was, regulations came out, everything was wide open. But there was a lot of people scared, about doing things, and I don't know. My gut was saying just to go for it. So that's kind of what I did, man. I wasn't getting political. There's no political statements. There was nothing. There was no like, I wasn't on any of those levels. I was strictly going, well, this is what the best I can do. I'm opening anyways. So, I mean, I have a campground in a field in the woods, so it's a little bit different.
Than, exactly. Than a hotel
Yeah. And then we did like all the big tents, all the big glamping tents and stuff. We had just limited those to 2 nights a week. I think that's what in the end it came out that you had to like clean. Yeah, that's what it was. It was like motels and hotels had to clean and leave 4 days in between bookings. So I just said Friday and Saturday for the remainder of the season, and then 2-night minimums, and that's vacant all week. So that's how we kind of like adapted, and then just offered more tours and rentals, and just kind of tried to offset the loss of revenue from the accommodation side to then be like tours, which you're on river or whatever, So
Did you have anybody ask to quarantine there? Like I know with my rentals, I had a few people ask to quarantine, and I said yes to a few because we weren't busy either. Like our revenues were way down, and we were just trying to figure things out, keep people safe, but also try to keep afloat at the same time. And honestly, I was pretty nervous having people quarantine because at certain points, like there was one person that come down from Quebec to quarantine, and they left. Like they would just come and go. And I felt like, geez, am I responsible to make sure this person's in their room at all times? Like, because at that point, New Brunswick was very, very strict. And it was an awkward, weird thing. So did you have anyone have to quarantine there, or anyone asked to do that, or how'd you handle that?
I can't remember. I don't think so. I think maybe we had a couple people, but it would have been, it would have just been probably a no at that point. Well, mostly because you don't have any power in any of the campground. You don't have like a bunch of different things. So I think probably in the end, like I honestly can't remember, but I think we did. But I probably would have been like, this is going to be way more work than what it's worth. So no, so probably, yeah. But I had a guy that came down from Ontario to work for me, but we had him at somebody else's cabin, I think. And that's a long time ago. I can't remember. A lot of things happened since then.
It really has. And a lot of things happened before that, and I kind of want to ask you about that. Like you obviously grew up in Marguerite in Cape Breton.
Yeah. I grew up like 10 minutes upriver from where I'm at right now.
Okay. And then and then what? Because I know you were into the events, but then you were also working offshore. Like what happened first, and how young were you when you left? Like walk me through that.
I did. So I started. When I was like 12 or 13, I started like DJing, like bought turntables and started messing around with that stuff when I was really young. And then we started running dances, like teen dances, and DJing those. And then
you must have been popular back then.
I don't know.
Not many 13-year-olds are fucking DJing, running the show.
Yeah, but it's a little different when you're in the country. You want to play. I was into really into house music and electronic music. So that wasn't really the biggest, thing here. It was more like top 40 as it is, whatever. So we would kind of sneak in a little bit here and there, but that's all I spent my time at. It's basically in my basement playing around turntables. Okay. And then started going to Halifax when I was in high school to play after hours clubs, because I wasn't 19 yet. So I could play all these after hours clubs, and I'd be walking out of Spring Garden Road with like record cases at like 9 a.m. coming out of like all these after hours nightclubs. And then, when I moved to Halifax, I started doing events, and then got into doing diving offshore. And then when I was offshore, I'd be playing and stuff when I come back, and we'd be doing events and concerts. So it kind of started as DJing clubs, and then it became more of like, then we're in back management and doing like club nights and touring, and then having a roster of DJs that would then tour all these different club nights that we promote. And then that escalated into concert tours and booking out stadiums and doing all kinds of stuff. Like for a good like 5-6 year period, there was only like maybe 1 or 2 companies, ours included, that would bring anything electronic and hip hop to Halifax. And then and then I was still DJing a bit, and then we when I moved back here in like 2015 maybe, that's kind of when 2015 16, that's kind of when I was like cycling out of all the event stuff. And then we started Live Life Intense in 2016. Yeah, and then 2 years ago I stopped working offshore. So I'll probably go back next summer for a little trip because there's some work coming up. But yeah,
Okay.
for pretty much this is my full-time gig now. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Cool. So you guys must have been, if you were like one of the only shows in town in Halifax, you guys must have been kind of killing it. Like what shifted your passion out of that and into rentals and, because that's quite a change of pace, living in the city, running big shows, and then now living out in the country and running a resort.
Well, it's not really that far because I mean, I grew up doing all this stuff anyway. So like we run like the campground is like a small portion of our business. Most of the stuff is like all of river tours, guided trips. We're starting to get into more educational side of things. So backcountry courses. Been working on this, winter camping course, mix of online and in-person stuff. Because there's a lot of not a lot being offered as far as anything other than entry level stuff when it comes to doing outdoors, hiking, backcountry, that sort of stuff. And then doing a lot of whitewater training. We've been kind of trial running some stuff this year, and hopefully next spring I'll start putting out more of these courses. And then,
So what do you mean by courses? Like you're the instructor and you walk them through it, or are you talking like online courses or?
Right now it's in person. So we have I
Okay.
just ran one last weekend. It was backcountry course. So basically we call it backcountry fundamentals, and it's kind of a qualifier for coming on any of our bigger trips. So we do like 4, 5, 6, 7 day backcountry between snowshoeing and hiking trips here in Cape Breton, and then overnight kind of mixed sport. So like hiking, paddling, sort of trips in the spring when the water's high, and then. But we developed this course because there's not much out there for people to learn basic fundamental skills and information about gear and all that sort of stuff, rather than just going out and doing things. So, and we wanted to kind of condense everything into one kind of weekend course where we do, basically it's like we do a webinar a week out, and it's just to go over all the curriculum that we have, like the gear, go over all the gear list, all the gear, and then we do like an overnight. I think it was like 20-some kilometer hike between 2 days, all backcountry off trail, and then get people get in the mix, navigate, talk about reading maps, talking about all that sort of stuff, why certain items on the kit list are there, why we use it, and that sort of stuff, and just trying to get people tuned up to be better prepared in backcountry, because right now there's only very entry level courses available, and there's nothing like this in the East Coast. So just trying to get more and more people into it safely. It's basically the idea.
So where did you learn all this stuff? Like, did you just kind of grow up into it, or is this something that you were taught?
Some of it was I was taught, some of it we just learned from doing. Like that's the biggest thing is I grew up doing all this stuff since I was 5. So like some people grew up playing hockey since they was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
They were a kid. I grew up like with a backpack on my back doing multi-day trips since I was 5 years old. Like the first 4 or 5 day trip I was 5. And so we've done multiple, like by the time I was like 10, 12, we were doing like 3, 4, 5, 4 to 7 day trips in the backcountry, a year with my dad's so-and-so. It was called Boy Scouts, but it wasn't Boy Scouts. It was a little bit more ridiculous than Boy Scouts. We did a lot of crazy shit that you'd never be able to do nowadays. Like there's no way you would be able to make a zip line across like a 150-foot canyon with like a bike with a pulley with a rope and a bike handles on it with a bunch of 15, 16-year-olds. They're with no harness. They're not clipped off to it. You're just holding, and they give it to you and they go, don't let go until you get to the other side, but don't wait because you're going to hit a tree at the end. So let go before you hit the tree. Yeah. So don't fall 150 feet and then don't hit a tree. Those are the only 2 things. Yeah.
Sound like pretty good rules.
Yeah. Right.
You imagine how quickly you'd be sued doing that nowadays?
Oh man, it'd be crazy. Yeah. All that shit. So yeah, I grew up and then getting taught all that stuff and then just, doing it over and over and over and over. But that's the thing. It's like people that knew me in Halifax and I lived there running events, nobody ever really knew my background. So when I moved here and I started doing all this stuff, they're like, how did you make that switch? I'm like, I've been doing this since I was a kid. Like all this stuff is shit that I've been doing since I was a little kid. It's stuff that I always did. There was just a period there in my 20s where I lived in nightclubs and lived a
Yep.
different life, but now I'm back to doing what I'm normally, what I grew up doing. So it's pretty fun. And to see people connect with it is the biggest thing. It's right. People come here and it's the vibe that I want to put out, as far as like the campground, the site, the tours, all that sort of stuff is a little bit different than what you would get elsewhere.
Yep.
So that's the kind of idea. And when people connect with it, and we get a lot of people that are here like year after year after year. I get guys that come down every fall for like a week to go fishing, to go hang out, paddling, that sort of stuff. And being able to connect with all kinds of different people is pretty fun. So,
Yeah, well, your area is beautiful. The landscape's beautiful. I mean, until you brought us down there and showed us around, I didn't realize how many waterfalls were there. I had not even been to the Cabot Trail at that point in my life, and now anyone that asks me like, what should I do on the East Coast? Because people I meet from wherever, I always say like the Cabot Trail in the fall is stunning. Like people like to go to New Hampshire or Vermont or something in the fall, right? Upstate New York, and those are beautiful places too. But the Cabot Trail, man, is wicked in the fall. Especially before the leaves go. Like it's great. And like I said, the waterfalls and something like just comparing New Brunswick to where you are in Cape Breton, like all those rivers and things because I obviously follow you on social and I'm seeing all the different tours and different things you're doing. Like we don't have those options here. Like there's no places to do that. Or if there is, it's in the spring when the snow melts and the rivers fill up and then they eventually dry up in the summer, so it's a very short window. But, I mean, Cape Breton's no joke. Like there's a lot there to do, based on the landscape.
Yeah. But it's all about, it's like none of all the stuff that we offer. So say for instance, like some of the paddling trips and all that sort of stuff, no one's ever done any of this stuff before. Like no one, may have paddled sections of it, but as far as like offering trips or documenting all this sort of stuff. So one of the biggest things that I've been doing over the last like 3 or 4 years, has been basically doing first descents of a lot of the river systems here to find any pretty cool, like any whitewater stuff, because there's no information about any of the upper rivers other than the bottom sections where people are generally living, or there's dirt roads up along either side, or it's easy accessible by a trail or whatever.
Right.
But anything above that, like most of these, so for instance, Marguerite, only about half the river is ever used or has traditionally ever been used. And then the whole upper river has been shut down to angling, like salmon fishing, since the 80s. So no one really goes up there. So we run tours up through there. And that's like the best part of the river, in my opinion, because there's all kinds of gnarly spots. It's very accessible as far as whitewater to do it with inexperienced people. But then you got places like Shetty Camp, which is just wild. That stuff is like, that's like New Zealand level whitewater. And then you got all these different rivers that we've been slowly working around doing and documenting that no one has ever documented. And then all the backcountry routes, trying to do things to and this is like the other side of my business. There's like accommodations, but then there's all the physical tours and the back. That's where I really like doing, because you're in the middle of nowhere and looking at a map and being able to look at topographical maps and get creative with different routes and stuff. And because once you learn all that sort of stuff, when you look at a map of the Northern Cape Breton Highlands, you're just like, it'd probably be like me, and you'd be like, okay, here's like 8 million different routes that we can take.
Right.
And try to influence people to think about hiking as not just on trail, trying to get off trail, do a little backcountry stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of goal with all the stuff on social media. It's basically just to promote all that stuff.
Yeah, well, you guys did a documentary too. That's another thing I left out of the intro. You guys did a documentary. Like, how was that experience? How'd that turn out?
Fuck, that's a lot of work. That was
everything you fucking do is a lot of work.
Yeah,
you haven't realized that yet.
Yeah, I know. I have two docs that are still. I haven't even looked at the footage yet. But the main one, we did one called the Cabot Trail documentary years ago, which was kind of like spawned out of the creative weekends, because a bunch of the guys that worked on it with me, like Wes and Bernie and Carter.
I remember.
Yeah, so it all kind of came out of that. And then, we did like a full length, it's like a 60-minute documentary. The idea originally was to do a tour. So we had tourism on board sponsoring it. We had a couple other people. We got a little bit of funding from ACOA and a couple of different places. And original idea, this is this because it was going to come out the year of COVID, or it did come out that year. But the idea was that we were going to take it on like a month-long tour and hit up university markets all through the East Coast. I was working on venues in Toronto, Quebec, Montreal, a couple different places. And so we're trying to do at least 20 different dates and put the screening up. And then we were going to promote like basically Cape Breton brands and all this tourism and that sort of stuff. And then COVID kind of put a pin in that. And then we almost didn't release it. But then, the whole lockdown, all I did was sit and edit. And then we released it as kind of a fundraiser for some of the, like all the businesses it featured. So basically it was like a documentary that followed 5 different businesses, all except for 1 or 6. And it was all except for one had just started around the same time I did. And then what we did was we put it up on Vimeo, and there was like a paywall. I think it was like $10 or $12, and people would watch it. We gave discounts, like a discount booklet that you could redeem if you went around the trail that summer. And plus any of the proceeds were just sent off to all the different businesses. So we probably, I can't remember what we sent to everybody. If it was like 1,000 a piece, close to 1,000 a piece. It wasn't bad. And then the next year we just released one in the spring. Another one called the Strawberry Run, which was shot in 2021. So that was a Margaree River trip, fishing and paddling trip. That was premiered at the Night of Adventure Film Festival in Halifax last spring. And then, I got one that we shot at Keji in 2021. I got another one. I forget what that one is now. No, wait, maybe it's just the Keji one. Yeah, the Keji one called The Tent Dwellers. So we filmed a thing with Parks and did a bunch of work for Parks Canada and a couple different brands in that trip. And that was an 8-day canoe trip covering this route that's documented in a book called The Tent Dwellers. It's like a book that was written 100 years ago. That there's plaques at Keji about it, and there's a whole route that people will take. But we recreated that route and shot a documentary about it. And hopefully, maybe I'll edit that this winter. Who knows? But that's 2021, and it's been in a hard drive since. But a lot of work. A lot of work.
You always have a lot on the go. I mean, I recognize that about you right away. Like even the event it was rare that you just sit and kind of enjoy. Like you were busy, you were preparing things, talking to sponsors, making sure everyone felt comfortable and things like that, making sure everybody was accommodated. So it really sounds like the tours and stuff is where your passion is versus the actual accommodation component.
A mix of both. I think they both go hand in hand. We are now trying to figure out, like this year we had a food truck on site. Friends of mine came down, which really worked out well.
At your location, you had a food truck?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah. And then we're working on building a site specifically for them. And then hopefully in the next year or two, we building a new shop, like purpose-built shop rather than just a shipping container with a door on it, which has been worked well for the last 6 years. And then more like campsites, that sort of stuff. So we're getting basically a year and a half ago, I bought the property next door. Between us and the river, and it came with a 3-bedroom house. So we just used that as a rental, short-term rental. And then we started working this year on rebuilding roads and flagging out campsites. So getting into like walk-in campsites. So kind of like what Kejimkujik does as well. So they have they call backcountry, but they're kind of like family walk-in sites. And so like if you have kids and whatever, you want to feel like you're backcountry camping, you can just walk in this path that'll take you to a campsite that's kind of like, half a kilometer into the woods, that sort of deal.
Right. Okay.
So getting into that, hiking trails, a couple different things. But hopefully we'll lean into that and then push on the tours. So this year we bought another local company, did paddleboard and kayak tours, Cape Breton West Paddleboards. So bought out Jeremy. And expanding on that next year. Okay. So that'll be more river tours, paddling stuff, rentals, that sort of stuff. But really leaning into that. So they both go hand in hand. And like to lean in, you called it like an eco resort, which is what I used to call it, but now I kind of just call it a campground. But now I'm back to going to be calling it an eco resort because it's going to be like everything in one: food truck, like shop, a little cafe, and then campsites, tours, that sort of stuff. And we have river access now, so we can send people down to the river to go swimming, and it's great. So
So with your like with those tours, like the backcountry tours, we're talking no cell service, we're talking off trail, we're talking multi-day, multi-night trips, like, and all the water sports too. Like, have you ever experienced anything like like dangerous, anything crazy, anybody get hurt, like anything like that, or is that ever on your mind, or are you guys just really well prepared for that, or? Like, is there anything really like, has anybody ever gotten hurt doing that stuff? Because that's not just for anybody, like you got to kind of be ready for it, to spend multi-nights in the woods without cell service and without, being coddled.
Yeah, well, I mean, that it's, we just have a lot of things in place to help mitigate that. That's kind of like where this course, like that I talked about before, the course kind of came in from, was we did, so there's a multi-day trail system that's been proposed for the last like 10 years in northern Cape Breton called the Seawall Trail, and they most recently this spring they got funding, so they got like a little over $6 million in funding, and the idea is to build like a hut-to-hut system, and not to go too far into the kind of weeds on this, but they their first round of funding they lost last year. The provincial government I believe pulled their funding for it last spring, so then that's why we officially started doing guided hikes through their route and helping them fine tune the route a little bit, and I adjusted it and changed it. So, and then in that process, we have a lot of things in place, and from doing this hike, we've had some people not to continue for various different reasons. So that's kind of how this course came into place. So it would be more like a prep for anybody that wants to do something that's multi-day that maybe not had done anything multi-day overnight before. Yep. It's kind of like a good trial run for us to keep track of people, because for most of our big multi-day trips, you have to apply for it. So there's an application, there's a $25 fee. You fill out this whole questionnaire talking about previous experience, some medical questions, mobility, do you have any mobility issues that might not be great, like, recent hip surgery or something, maybe.
So do you read those applications personally?
Yeah. So we review them, and there's a few questions in there that are specifically set up. Like what's one? Can you hike uphill? Can you hike uphill with a 35 to 45 pound backpack on for 8 hours a day, and then wake up? This isn't the exact wordings, but it's something like this. And wake up the next day able to do that again without being tired or something around those lines. So if somebody says no, then that's obviously a red flag, and you might want to do kind of like a qualifier course first and come out with us and see what it's like, rather than get into multi-days. And that's kind of one of the things that we have in place. I mean, as far as like stuff in the backcountry, other than we had frostbite one year over the Highlands.
Frostbite?
Yeah, I had a couple guys with frostbite on that one.
Holy fuck! They all right or what?
Oh yeah. There's two of them were guides. There's a lot of factors that added up, and it's when you look back on a trip like that, and you kind of like try to wheel it back, you realize that there were certain things that led up. It wasn't just like, oh, it was cold, people got frostbite. There was a lot of things that led up to that incident, and after reflecting on that trip, there's a lot of things that got put in place. So specifically for like the winter trips, we are very strict on gear. So if you register for it, and there's a questionnaire, fill out the questionnaire. You pass the questionnaire, I send you a registration and deposit. That triggers out all these emails that are like, here's the gear list. You schedule in an online, it's going to be like a video call like what we're doing right now. Yep. And we go over the gear list. You have to physically show me each item that's on that list that you actually have it. And if you don't have it, then we give you a week or two to get it. And then if you don't get it 2 weeks out prior to the trip, then you're not coming on the trip. So there's things that we put in place to help mitigate that from ever happening again. But then there's some things that you just can't, I got hypothermia on one trip, and that was shit. That was like the second night or third night in out of like 6 nights. And that was it's just me not realizing it and slipping into, just stage 1 hypothermia, and then shivering all night and then trying to recover for the next 2 days. And, that was just me not realizing, not drinking enough, I'm usually breaking trail leading. I had my friend leading, so I was wearing clothes that normally I'd be wearing because I'm breaking trail and super hot and sweating. Right. But I just slowly slipped into that. I didn't realize it. And then until I was digging a ditch with a shovel just to try to stay warm, like walking in circles and just digging like a 15-foot hole to try to stay warm.
Holy
and
shit.
Then I'm like, wait a minute, I think I'm hypothermic. And then, yeah, stuff like that. But, you live and learn, but nothing crazy. But there's always curveballs, man, that get thrown at you. Like when we get frostbite that time, there's a lot of factors that led up to it. And then the final one was, breaking through into a small brook and somebody's feet got wet and we had to help fix that situation. And because of that, and it was a polar vortex like we had this winter. So it was like minus 40, I think, up there with wind chill. So it was ripping and freezing cold. And then we had pushed 2 days in one day to try to get out at night because we're getting that minus 40 weather and didn't want to camp overnight. So a lot of things happened. And we were in a cabin in Shetty Camp, and my brother came knocking on the door, and he's like, "We got 4 people with frostbite. We go figure this shit out right now." So it's a lot of in and out of a bathtub and drinking beers and laughing. But the boys, they're all good friends of mine now. So everybody that was on that trip, they're great sports. But it's a story we tell.
So when obviously you didn't plan for minus 40, but you plan to sleep out in the winter. Like, what do you pack? Like, what do you bring? What do you sleep in? Like what's the whole setup there when you know, okay, maybe it's not minus 40, but it's going to be minus 20. Like what's your plan?
That's all in just gear, man. That's in gear prep. So, if you're sleeping, it's basically a sleep system. So you're looking at sleeping bag, properly rated sleeping bags, and then sleeping pads. So layering up sleeping pads so you have a certain R value. Also,
to keep you off the wet ground. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So basically, Thermarest is a company, but I just call every sleeping pad a Thermarest. So rule of thumb is, you just like insulation in a wall, there's certain R values that different sleeping pads will give you, and you want to generally be like 4.5 above for winter stuff. Mind you, I used to use just a simple foam one, which is like an R value of 2, and I used that for up until last year. So I was fine because I sleep hot anyways. But yeah, just in figuring out the best sleep system and different items that you can bring with you that don't create a lot of bulk. So sleeping bag's going to be super bulky, but having something that's properly rated for what you're going into, those pads like layered up with a inflatable one and then a hard rigid foam one. But then it's like, your down jacket that you're going to bring with you, your booties that you wear around base camp. You can also sleep in those. Those are like down booties that you wear around, having dry clothing, but the clothing that you need, like merino or wool or something synthetic, not having cotton at all. And then just having all that stuff and just being comfortable. Like, some nights I'm shivering in my sleeping bag, but I'm perfectly fine. You just get comfortable with being in that environment over time, and the only way to get comfortable is by continually doing it and trying it and whatever. Right. But we've had people that have zero winter camping experience, and it may have done like 1 or 2 overnight trips that come on our big 6-day, 5-night trip across the Highlands. So that happens every February. So we've got that booked out fully this year. But
wow, right in the thick of it. That's like the coldest time of year.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. Get up there and we cross from one...
that's the whole point, eh? Coldest fucking time of the year.
Yeah, go from one side of the park to the other. So we go from Ingonish to Shetty Camp. So, and then we stay at the Inverary in Bedeck, bookend the trip with the Inverary Lodge.
Nice.
And and then snowshoe for multiple days across the Highlands and have fun along the way. And it's always a crapshoot, man. There's a picture on my wall behind me. That's the first year, the frostbite year. It's mounted on my wall. I'm going to show you that one right there.
Yeah, sure.
And that's on White Hill. So you passed over the highest elevation in Nova Scotia, which isn't anything crazy, but a place called White Hill. And it's usually a whiteout. Last year was blue, clear skies. You could see all the major watersheds off the top of the Highlands.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty neat. And then we got blizzard on the other side of it. So yeah, it's always fun. But yeah, just to help you just have the right gear, and that's kind of the whole idea of the stuff that we put on. Like all the trips is a little bit of like coaching, providing gear lists, and I'm always changing and updating and improving that information. So all the new information that's going out for the people that are signed up for February has a lot more to it than last year's stuff, because I've found better items or whatever, and we've sent links and buying links and tips on how to purchase equipment and what things to look for. And maybe you don't necessarily have to spend hundreds of dollars on brand name stuff. You can buy alternate ones off Amazon, different brands that are sold on Amazon that I've tested over the last year or so that are really good. You don't have to spend $300 on a sleeping pad from Thermarest. You can buy the same one from Amazon for $60.
Right.
So, it's just it's all trial and error and sharing knowledge with people to help people become more confident and prepared for doing anything outdoors. So, so we do everything from all those big trips all the way down to like basic campsites and paddleboarding, flat water. So a lot of different things happen.
So what are the challenges to your business? Like what causes the biggest grief, like the most grief, the biggest headaches?
Communication, because nobody reads anything.
No one reads the emails.
Nobody reads anything, man. So I'm actually working right now. I was down at a new cottages that opened here. They're kind of like higher end cottages here in Marguerite, between Marguerite and Shetty Camp. These guys, this guy Scott, he's from North Sydney, but he lives in Ontario, and they bought this property and built these really nice cottages. And I was down checking them out, and he was going through his kind of the apps, because the business partners live in Ontario, so they want to kind of like delegate everything and have everything more digital, even with their lawn care, to everything's all managed within like an internal app. And and then like they have a digital book, which I have, the Airbnb listens, we have like a digital guidebook. I have like a physical one that I pulled out of the rentals to try to update it. But he shared with me their digital platform they use, which comes at it does come at a price. You pay per unit. So if you have 6 units, 6 glamping tents, I'm paying, I forget how many per tent. But like I'm working on it now for the house, the 3-bedroom house rental, the Cameron house.
Okay. Yeah.
And so basically when you log in, there'll be a plaque there with a QR code. You scan it. Their emails will be sent to you. You can download it, the PDF right to your phone, and it shows up as kind of like an app on your phone, so you can kind of go through it. It gives you all the information that you would have in like an Airbnb listing, or that we send out anyways, but it's kind of designed more of like an app, more user friendly. It'll have like shops, hiking trail locations, all that sort of stuff, so we can keep everything all in one. And then I'm trial running that for the cottage, and then I'll probably implement something similar for the campground. So
and what's that app called? I genuinely want to know for my new rentals here in Nova Scotia.
So the one he's using is called Touch Day. And then there's another one called Go Guidebook that I was looking at last night. So basically number of properties, it's for the house, it's $99 for the year. So what's that, like $8 or something a month is what I pay for it. Okay. It gives you a couple months free to play around with. And I don't know the digital, I didn't look into their pricing yet, but yeah, basically it's a just a digital platform. And that I was kind of going to look into my own app basically, but if I could find a web-based thing, then this is easier.
Than building your own app.
Yeah. So basically So we just, implement this, trial run this, and hopefully this solves any of the questions. Because that's the biggest hurdle, man. It's like when people show up, we try to do everything digitally, but the one of the good things that came out of COVID for us was that more people actually paid attention to all the digital stuff that we sent them, the waivers, the payments. Like, we send notices out before. We try to have everything paid up and 100% before people get here, so we can limit, like, especially when we do like all the river activities. So the tubing, paddleboarding, kayaking, man, there might be like 150 people here, like during run of a day, back and forth, and big groups and small groups and kids and families. So trying to mitigate the amount of time like killed trying to sign a waiver or take care of all this extra stuff, or I'll get all this information. That's the one good thing about COVID. It helped force people to do a lot of stuff online. So, but prior to that, man, that was the hardest thing. Trying to get people to sign a waiver, take 2 seconds out of their time to sign a waiver on their phone was like trying to pull teeth here in Cape Breton. Yeah. People from Ontario would get it, but people from Nova Scotia just didn't want to do anything digitally. They wanted like handwritten,
right?
Everything. So
yeah, I find that a lot in my business too. Like I'm trying to do everything digitally, like our pre-booking and our like store orders and things. For example, we have a website for all of that, and there is still resistance. People want to jump on the phone, or they want to come in. Some people want to come into our warehouse and look around, and things like that. But from a business standpoint, it's so much more efficient if they just, comply to the digital asks, and how hard is it to DocuSign, or how hard is it to, read that PDF on your phone or whatever, right? It's pretty easy, but for someone that's resistant to the technology, it can be frustrating for them and for you as the business owner, right?
Yeah, I mean, and everything's, it's for us, it's mostly like sharing information and trying to curb expectations, before people get here. Like we've had, so for instance, we have a campground. There's no power in the campground. We have these glamping tents. I mean, glamping is a very broad spectrum of use, like that term. Totally. So it goes for anything from an actual cottage to our tents that we have. So queen beds, cots, bench, all the cookware. They'll have barbecues next year. This year it's just Coleman stove still. But every year try to improve it a little bit. But it is no power. The bathrooms are all shared at one spot in the campground, outdoor showers. So I find the biggest hurdle is with Airbnb, because people don't read any listings on Airbnb. So we had a couple people show up this year that expected the $5,000 a night, like we need to be waited on. Where's our personal fridge? Where's our this? And I'm like, that's not what you booked.
Right.
This is so trying to curb expectations that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm just literally have a list, and it's like notes of 2023, and it's like a book of things that happened throughout the summer that I just work on. I do it every year. So during the summer, I just make a note on my phone, and it has all this stuff that I've got to either improve on, change, ideas for making things better, for checking in, like how can we streamline the entire process. And then I go over it usually in November and try to figure out so that's why I'm doing this guidebook. Hopefully we'll send that out, and those will work quite well. Just help manage everything a little better and curb expectations. That's the biggest thing. And then like the river tours, trying to get people to share information about what to expect on the river. You'd think that bringing a bottle of water with you is common sense, but some people need to be told to bring a bottle of water with them on the river.
Right.
Yep. So, but that sort of stuff. That's the biggest hurdle. Communication and expectations, man.
And it's hard, like, because you're a pioneer. I mean, there's not many outfits like yours. So if you're kind of the first, it's different if you're the fifth hotel in town. Well, people understand how a hotel works. But when you're the first kind of person doing what you're doing, you have to explain everything for the first time. People aren't conditioned to know those things or do those things, right? Like I've stayed places with an outdoor shower. It's certainly a different experience and a different customer base than someone that wants a hotel shower. Like it's just, that's one difference. And if you don't read the description in the bookings, you might be disappointed. Like you said, if you're expecting a fancy shower, well, no, this is outdoor shower. It's an eco resort. That's part of the vibe. That's why people choose to stay with you, because they prefer that. But if you're a hotel person that doesn't read the description, you're in for a surprise.
Yeah. So like on Airbnb specifically, there's as soon as you make a booking, there's an auto email that goes out, and it's like, here's all the things that people have not fully understood from the listing. Boom, outdoor showers. Boom, we have a pit toilet. So basically outhouses. Boom, There's no power in the campground. Wi-Fi's at the shop. If you don't want this booking, cancel it right now. We'll give you a full refund.
Right.
And so immediately, I've had people that have booked and they're like, oh, we didn't actually realize that. So they didn't actually read any of the listing. They just look at the price and booked it because it might have been on like a last minute deal or something that I was trial running with a couple of them. And then they're like, oh yeah, we need power because we have this or we have that, or my wife doesn't want to stay there, that sort of stuff. But at least that curbs the expectations,
Right.
because that is the Airbnb stuff is where the issues lies. People that book direct through us know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
But
And they probably
Airbnb-
follow your channels and they know exactly what you are and what you represent, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's the name of the game, man. It's always you constantly have to be like trial running things and improving, and if you don't like, I had an email today from somebody who stayed at the house next door, and we send an email 2 days after or 3 days after you stay here. It's like, how did we do? You can send us private feedback or go and review us on all these different places, and then they sent a big list of private feedback. So then, I'm implementing a bunch of the stuff is already being worked on, like more utensils and that sort of stuff. But, yeah, all that stuff can be improved on. So, and if you're not constantly learning and growing, then I think there's a problem. So if your knee-jerk reaction is to be like, well, screw that person, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be an issues because you're going to constantly run into those problems. But if you can try to help, like, for instance, somebody showing up and not having what they expected, well, it's like, okay, well, how can we mitigate this? Well, let's auto email everybody and make sure they have all these auto messages set up so that it's all lined up and they know exactly what to expect. So even with river activities, we never used to, if it was drizzling, I wouldn't even contact anybody. But now it's like in the morning, we look at the weather, we have a blanket email that goes out and it just says, hey, just so you know, it might be overcast today. The weather's going to be a little chillier, might rain. So if you have kids or whatever, you might want to bring a jacket, this sort of stuff, which you think would be common sense. But, I've had people show up and not pay attention to anything. And then they're like, it's pouring down rain out. Like, yep.
Common sense ain't that common, man.
Nope. It is not.
So what's next for you? Like, you just bought that new rental place. You said it was a 3-bedroom house. Like, what is the next few years? Like, what's next for you? What's next for the business?
We're just going to keep expanding, doing the educational side of things, lean into that a bit more, trying to do some online. Now that things calm down, we'll do some online courses. Yeah. So people can buy the online courses, and then there's in person. So the more entry level stuff will be online because that'll be gear, the same stuff you usually have to go over with people, and then expanding the river stuff and then expanding the campground. So we built roads this year, did a lot of the heavy work, and next year's hopefully, well, I'm just working on those now, clearing out campsites and trails, and we've cut a couple kilometers of hiking trails and stuff already. Just trying to improve the site, the grounds, and keep moving.
What has changed since I was there on the grounds? Like, I know, I don't even think the public bathrooms were installed when I was there. I think those were just being built. Like, what has changed on the ground since I was in?
What do we got? We've got new roads, couple trails, couple wooded sites.
A couple wooded sites. Yeah, there was no wooded sites when I was there.
We got a big, put like a wash, like I think that year, the very first year, I think there was 2 separate buildings. It was like showers and the basically outhouses, and then we linked them with like this big. I got a big cast iron sink that was used at somebody's farmhouse, so I bought that and we turned that into a big washing area. Showers, new roads. What else we get? I mean, a lot of it was just like gear investments in improving all that sort of stuff. And then like inside the tents, investing in like, I remember the first year I opened the tents, it was literally just like camping cots. And so now it's like, that's what you were texting me earlier. I was like building the hutches for the end of the, like these, little hutch cabinets for the end of the bed. Cause I got all this reclaimed barn board from my old barn, that I finally pulled out of storage. So we're kind of making all those and improving stuff for next year. But like every year it just adds a couple more things. So next year it'll all be barbecues, a couple of the tents, bigger tents are going into the woods, with wood stove hookups. We're supposed to happen this year, but I didn't. I've had the wood stove since last year. We just never got a chance to do it. So, but yeah, just site improvements, man. I'm just trying to get things in place so we can build like a purpose-built shop, so that it's an indoor heated kind of lodge area. So if it's raining or if it's cold, people can hang out inside and use Wi-Fi and sit around the couches and network and whatever. So, that's kind of the next evolution of things. But we'll see when that happens.
One cool thing about your spot is like when you go, we know, and especially with getting to know you and talking, like we know that you've done a lot of that heavy lifting, a lot of that building, a lot of that, like you said, like salvaging a cast iron sink, or reclaiming old barn lumber and building something out of that. Like I think that adds a lot too to the customer experience, especially you're just so hands on, but also you're behind the scenes building and grinding and working and getting up super early to get a lot of that stuff done in season when you're also managing the business side of things. So I definitely think that adds like a lot to your resort. I don't know how the hell you're not burned out, to be honest, just seeing it from a spectating point of view.
You get there. I mean, this September was pretty slow, so kind of shut down for most of September. So when everything switches, so after Labor Day, it usually dies off for a bit. And this year it really died off because we took all the tents down. I went down to just me working. So I was just like, you know what, I'm not dealing with this stuff. Because last year we had all the hurricanes, Fiona, we had stuff before, and I was doing a bunch of multi-day trips. So it was chaos. I was like texting on my GPS, my Garmin InReach, to some of the guys that were working for me to tear stuff down. Yeah. And it was just like chaos. So we just tore it down, and I just slept for like 2 weeks. And then October got really busy with guided trips, and the campground's busy and events, and so hopefully next year, September, I'll be busy as well, because so I'll have to put something in place for next year. But yeah, this year we started really early. This year I was April building and running whitewater trips, and then doing hiking seawall stuff, which are a 4-day trip. So I was doing multiples like back to back. And then and we're building a new building and doing all the excavators here, doing all the groundwork, dump trucks, building the roads. It's burnt up by August.
Did Fiona affect you? The Hurricane Fiona? Did that,
nope.
Like you lose any trees or anything? No, you're fine.
Yeah, we were kind of, this western side of Cape Breton got nothing. I didn't even lose my power.
Oh, wow.
So we were unaffected by anything. But now you go to Sydney. Sydney was leveled. The other way, Antigonish, that area was leveled, but the western side of Cape Breton, not really, man. We got some high winds, and I think the lights flickered here that night, and that was it.
Yeah. See, at home in New Brunswick, I lost maybe a few limbs, a few small trees, and I tied my docks to the bank, to trees on the bank, and I might have like an 8 or 10 foot bank, and the water rose right to my ground level, so it rose 8 or 10 feet, and my docks rose right above my posts. My posts that are 16 feet, mind you, a lot of that is in the ground, but 16 feet posts, you couldn't even see them. The sea level was that high, and which was fine though. I looked around, no damages, no trees fell on my house or vehicle, whatever, we're good. And then I got a call from my business partner, because obviously that I'm opening rentals just outside of Wentworth, Nova Scotia, and he contacted me. He said, Sawyer, well, actually our carpenter contacted him, who contacted me and said, Sawyer, you got to get down here. And when we got down there, man, it was devastation. It looked like a clear cut in some of our property. And we were so specific with which property, especially me. Like, I love trees. I love nature. I love trees. I wanted nice, big, old trees. And these fucking trees, man, they were uprooted. Like, it was unbelievable, the trees that were knocked down. And we had to completely rethink our layout and our design. And thank God we didn't have any buildings there yet, buildings built. But we like our road system, our sites where we're going to put buildings, like everything changed, and obviously added a lot of expenses, because now we have all these fallen trees and uprooted trees. So Fiona in New Brunswick didn't touch us barely, but then that project in just outside of Wentworth, man, got hammered.
So did you have any of the infrastructure, any of the roads done yet?
We had, so that was part of the problem. We had our road punched. So we had a road, I don't even know, maybe a 900-foot road. And we had all these little like branches of the road that were going to be our sites. There was no physical buildings or anything, thank God. But the gust of wind, it seemed like, traveled up the road, like where we cut, which was disturbed earth now at this point. It seemed like the gust went right up the road and just leveled everything to the sides of that road. So that's all we had for infrastructure, was a road. There was no undergrounds. But we had like an engineer design our septic system, our electrical systems underground. All of our systems were in place that all had to be redesigned, because our sites now changed, and because we wanted it to be a nature retreat, right? We didn't want it to be a friggin' clear cut. If that was the case, we would have bought a field, right? Yeah. But so we wanted it amongst the trees. But I'm telling you, man, these trees were like I'd say some of these trees were at least 100 years old, and they were just uprooted, not snapped, not broken, just right from the root system, pulled right out of the ground.
Yeah, yeah. I was down at Mariah's at Seek and Truro in the spring, and I remember sitting there. I remember when all that happened to hers, and she was like, her site was the same deal. They left all these big hardwoods up and cut all the like softwoods and opened it up, and then Fiona just kind of like demolished all those big trees. Yep. And I was there at her place, and I was looking around. I'm like, oh man! And you could see where all the deadfall was, where they cut the trees down and used it for firewood. I'm like, oh. Yep. That would have been, and I know she took time to pick certain ones and leave certain ones up. And then all of a sudden overnight, most of those big trees are gone. It was, I mean, luckily we didn't get hit that bad up here, but like I said, Sydney was like monster big old trees just down into houses. Like I think there's probably still houses up there that still don't have roofs.
Right.
Well,
so Mariah, like her and I talked about it too all the way through, and we kind of grieved together the loss of our property. She actually had buildings on, and a lot of her privacy, like you said, she was very specific with which trees she wanted to leave, so everyone had good privacy and all that. And it was just completely wiped. So she ended up planting a bunch of trees and coming up with other solutions to create privacy between the units. And for us, we were earlier stages. Like we didn't have the buildings and stuff, but we almost sold the property. Like we looked at it, we're like, should we just fucking sell it and start over and buy a different piece? Like after it took us 6 months to find that piece, like, and then we made it work. But yeah, man, it was devastating. And then we had the forest fires this year. And that shut down all of our machinery in the woods. Obviously, it was high risk for fires. So all the excavators, all that stuff doing our groundwork wasn't allowed to operate for a few weeks. And it's been a crazy year and a half, 2 years, man, this project.
Yeah, I'd say down that way, more so. We didn't get much of that. Like the fires up here, nothing. That was all, the mainland Halifax and that region. But and then the floods, man, it was just like one after another. Wow, I didn't even realize that because we're so detached up here. Like I'm just so I don't pay attention to what's happening. It's just like what's going on this day and how do we, it's just like out the door at like 6, and then I get back in the door at like 9, 10 o'clock, and then I'm out, and then I wake up, do it again, and do it every day all summer.
Well, that's how it felt in New Brunswick. Like we had one forest fire that was fairly close to home, but besides that, like we've been relatively untouched. But yeah, that certain part of Nova Scotia just seemed to get hammered time after time with these like natural events. And I know when I was driving to check on the property in a panic, it's a beautiful road to get to the property. You pass the ski hill and you're seeing all these nice A-frames and chalets, and it's ski country. So it's like a really nice road. But on this day in particular, when I was checking things out, and it's a back road, so it's not a priority road to get the power back up and running and, so on and so forth. Obviously, they focused on the cities and stuff during the hurricane. And as I'm driving up this rural road, I'm like, oh, this ain't good. Huge trees leaning on the lines. Every fucking power pole, man, there was another tree. I'm like, oh, boy. And they were all going the same direction, so you could very visibly see the direction of the wind. And it was all these trees, and it got to a point where some of the power poles were snapped. So they'd be off. And I don't think any of the wires were live, hopefully, but I was dodging. Like I was just weaving, going through, obviously slow, but going through trees and debris and limbs and power poles and power lines in some cases that were down. And then, so I was kind of ready for what to expect when I got to the property. And when I got to the property, man, I have videos of it that just, it's like really sad to see, because we were like Mariah. I went with my ribbon and walked around, and we made our road. Like we're like, save that tree. We're going to have a bend in the road just to save that tree. We're going to have a bend here to save that tree. And, NS Power and our excavator guys, they're like, the road's got to be wider. And we're like, we want the road as cottagey as possible, not any wider than necessary to do this. And then all of a sudden it was just a fucking clear cut. And we're like, well, all right. NS Power, you got your wish, man. You got your 66 feet that you need, because there's like 200 feet wide now. But yeah, man, that was our reality. Wow. It's brutal.
Oh, well, now the end's in sight though. So,
Well, that's it. We're getting close. And I want to have you down too, man. Like I'm so excited for that thing to open. We're crossing our T's, dotting our I's. We're getting close. Not quite there yet, but we're getting close. When we open, it'll be this year, hopefully during the ski season. So we'll have to have you down.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah, now that I'm purposely taking time to do shit that I want to do this year. So
Yeah, good.
I haven't done it in like years, because we were putting a foundation on my house one year. I was doing something else another year. It was just like another thing after another thing after another thing. So
Yeah.
that's why I was texting you, because I was heading up. I'm going to go up New Brunswick way and up through Quebec and Ottawa for a few weeks in the end of this month, whenever we get finished doing some work with the Seawell Trail Group, whenever that next 4 days is, weather dependent. And as soon as that's done, I'm on the road. So yeah, doing a little bit more of a product market research and product research, going up and seeing, different trails, different places, stay at different places and see what it's like. And
cool.
Sometimes I think that you got to do that. Hire other tour companies to go see how they operate, to figure out what you can improve on. So, and
you also can't work all the time, which I know you work a lot. You got to have a little bit of fun too.
Yeah, well, now I got to fix up my house. So we put new foundation on it last year, and then it's still like there's still shit that needs to get sorted, and the basement's like chaos, and it's been like, in the spring I just throw up my hands. As soon as the stuff starts ramping up in like May, I just go, nope, that's it, and I'll figure it out in November, December, and then spend the winter fixing everything up. So we'll see. Few cracks in the drywall that I need to fix.
Was that when you lifted the house for the foundation, or what?
Yeah. I got this house is like 110 years old, and then the original foundation was not surprise, it was not square or level. So when the house was up, it was fine, and then when once it settled back down on a square foundation, everything kind of shifted. So most of the house is all boards, old boards on the wall, the original ones, and then. But like some of the new places, like the corners are cracked. There's some stuff in my kitchen, that sort of stuff. Like there was parts of the house that were 2 inches off the foundation and never settled. So I had to basically cut wood and throw it in, and then spray foam the shit out of it, and fill all the cracks with some steel wool so that those squirrels don't get in.
The mice and the squirrels, yeah, man. I got squirrels in my attic. There was one time I was quarantining for COVID. I had COVID, and I was quarantining, and I put a live trap in my attic. I caught 5 squirrels, and the little fuckers, they were smart. They would reach in and grab the peanut butter any way they could. So I had to basically force them into the cage. Like basically the only way into that food was through the front door, through the trap door. And eventually they did. I caught 5 of them, and I would drive to my buddy's place and release them in his yard. So I took every squirrel that I caught, because they're smart and they'll come back to fucking where they know it's warm. So you have to cross like a body of water. And I'd cross the bridge and I'd drop them off at my buddy's house. Then he'd have to deal with them. I hired, I don't know if I'll get into that, but I had a guy that worked for me. I just said, listen, I have a couple of squirrels getting everything. Take your pellet gun and figure it out. Yeah. And so I'll give you $20 a head. And they were they were into the house, they were into the linnet. So we have a building out back for like all the housekeeping. So they got in, ate through the hole, through the wall, basically got in, was in one of the bins full of sheets. Cost so much money to replace. No, it was the duvet covers, because they're like $100 a duvet cover. Yeah. Anyways, I was so mad, and he came and he disappeared. And he came back an hour later, and he had like 6 or 7 in his hand. I'm like, man, I figured I'd just get the 2 that are around the house. But what I found out after the fact is that they're territorial, and then once they're gone, then others just move in, man. It's just like. Kind of like coyotes. The more you shoot, the more they breed. It's like they never get rid of them. So, not to say I don't shoot coyotes. I don't. But all the old farmers and stuff around here. Oh, yeah. But for sure. Anyways, no, right on. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. When you come through New Brunswick, obviously look me up. We'll do something, or at the very least have a beer or have a meal or something, or show you the warehouse or whatever you want to do. Oh, yeah. You got the warehouse. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I'll pop in for sure. Yeah, pop in, look me up. Like I said, I appreciate your time. Where can everybody find you? Where's your links, your website link, social media links and things? Where can people find you? Just look up Live Life Intense. It's the same on all the social channels at Live Life Intense. So new podcast is hopefully going to start up in the next month or so. Okay. We're just kind of getting the list of guests. There's some old guys that we're trying to track down. That have been elusive so far, so hopefully try to get them on. Yeah, the whole idea, the podcast when you jumped on it was to
the idea was to talk to people traveling through the campground or people that traveled through Marguerite, like I did you, and then I did Charles Gaines as the second one. And Charles was he's more known for his books, his novels that he wrote, but he has a place in Marguerite, comes down fishing all the time, and he wrote Pumping Iron, which was the documentary Schwarzenegger, and then did a bunch of other stuff. But he's has a place here, and that was the whole idea. But it's kind of evolved where we're just talking to people more in the outdoor space, people that are doing cool things. And this season, I'm really trying to. There's a couple guys that have been trying to track down. One guy's an old treasure hunter. He's like 70 years old, an old diver from
that'd be cool.
Cape Breton, and he wrote a bunch of books. And
he'd have some stories.
Oh man, it's crazy. There's stuff in his book, and then another guy used to work for the park. He's also in his 70s, but like all these crazy old stories about stuff that they found in the park, all the backcountry stuff, and they used to have backcountry campsites in the park other than Fishing Cove. They used to have tons of different sites and A-frames and all this stuff that they just they're all basically falling down now. Okay. And a few other people that we were trying to get in last year, but just stuff didn't work. So cool. Yeah, definitely more on the adventure side of things. But then again, we've had Mariah was on, different business owners, and then
and that'll be on your Live Life Intense Instagram. Is that the best place to find that?
Yeah, we'll be promoting it soon. Kind of like starting to promote all the old episodes shortly. Just kind of like leading things into when we start doing podcasts. Yeah, we just like talking to people doing cool things. So If you stumble across our old link, you'll have to send it, man. I'd love to listen to it because it's been it's been probably 5 years. I'll just text it to you. Yeah, sure. It's on Spotify, I think. I don't know. It's on all the different channels. But I'll do it once we jump off here. But Live Life Intense, and everything. I've been taking a hiatus from social media for the last 2 weeks, but we're getting back at it. Cool. Now it's usually my time to just veg out and not worry about it. So, but there you go. Anyways, yeah. Awesome, man. Well, it was awesome chatting. Thanks again for your time, and we'll be in touch. Same. Cool, man. Thank you. Cheers. The Sawyer Hannay Show.